All right, guys, we are here again on a hot Sunday here, and we actually have two guests this time. Not very regularly do we have multiple at once, but I like it. It breaks it up, and these two have a really interesting story, and we're gonna talk about some things that we don't regularly talk about too much, especially when it comes to the homelessness and things like that. It's just I try to stick to things I know for the most part, unless I find people who are willing to talk about and have their experiences with it, because there's so many challenges out here, and you can only focus on so many, because otherwise you get really sad, because there's a lot going on out in this world, and but there's so many people spreading joy and just doing good things throughout their lives, and I feel like they don't get enough shine, get enough airway, or whatever you want to call it, because a lot of times we, or the media, or whoever, focuses on the negative. So, yeah, you guys want to introduce yourselves? Tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, TJ. My name is Wanda Webster. I work as an educational therapist, started out as a special ed teacher. So I've worked with children with learning differences for many years, and I help them reach their full potential. Let's put it that way. So I look at what is getting in the way of their learning and what tools and skills can I teach them to help them become independent learners, number one, and reach their full potential, whatever that might be, whatever their dream might be. And it's very fulfilling. In that process, I spent many years writing social emotional programs. And at one point, my program was in about 7 countries back in I think it was in the 90s. This is quite a while ago. So I enjoy writing that. My brain works well in creating a curriculum. And the reason I say that is when I met Christopher, who is in the AA program, and he would speak several times a week, and I would go and visit. I would go and see him speak, and he always had a dream, a vision of having a seminar of some sort, incorporating his work called The Dynamics of Recovery. And that was an easy thing for me to create for him based on my background as an educator and also curriculum specialist. And so that started that process. I didn't dream and imagine that it would turn into books and a whole whatever, a business.
Sure.
But it's evolving over the years. We had a great time piloting it down on Skid Row for a couple of years in 3 different locations, like 3 times a week. And so I'm going to introduce Christopher, have Christopher introduce himself, I guess.
Hello, TJ. Christopher Mack here. Well, my journey started actually in the year 2000. And of course, I'm a lot older than just 24. I started in the year 2000 where I found the road to recovery. And it started on one night when I was facing time in the state penitentiary, and I was standing on the corner with handcuffs on, and all of a sudden I heard a voice inside my head say, "You won't see one day in the state penitentiary." And that's what started me on my road to recovery, and understanding that recovery is getting back that which was lost. And in the 24 years that I have actually been in the program, it started with the AA program, which runs principles before personality. And I didn't realize that how I was living my life based on my personalities, and some of those were based on a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of distrust, and so many different things. And in the year 2010, I met Wanda, and I wanted a relationship, but I didn't know what kind of relationship. But now the program was teaching us how to be honest, and I said, okay, well, I think that I'm a polygamist by nature. And she said, that doesn't work for me. I said, well, what works for you? She says, I'm looking for a monogamous relationship. I said, I don't know what that is. I don't even know if I could do something like that. And she said, well, why don't you try it for 30 days? Well, in the middle of it, she gave me her friend's telephone number, and I talked to her friend, and her friend was telling me what kind of person she was. And I was thinking about, okay, I'll try this. But alone in my own solitude, I had to ask myself the question, what am I going to get out of this? And a resounding answer came back. It says, you're going to get spiritual growth and development. And that's what I've gotten in these last 14 years of being with Wanda. And that agreement for monogamy has since evolved to growing old with her. So
That's awesome.
I do feel that in our life, we can recover from everything and anything. And I work in the recovery, I work in Skid Row. And a friend of mine once said that Skid Row is the largest recovery in the world because people are always having this opportunity to recover from anything or something or everything.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, Skid Row is a very notorious area for the homeless population. And just, I mean, I think that everyone, when it comes to, I don't know, like the ideal place where people know where they exist, it's the one, I mean, it may not be the biggest, but it is probably the most notorious due to its name and just the visuals that everyone has from down there. What is it that you do down there?
I'm a community outreach worker for a company that provides medical services for the underserved. Skid Row not only is notorious, but it was considered the epicenter of homelessness.
Sure.
Because the condition has been existing in Skid Row for 50 years. And the policies that are being made, some of those policies have been, policies that Skid Row found didn't work. But Skid Row itself, it became a human landfill, really, in all actuality. There is a work by a lady named Catherine Reuter that talks about the body homeless and how to keep homeless people out of the public. And so Skid Row became that place. Unfortunately, being the epicenter means that things go out from that radius.
Right.
So center of homelessness is number one. I think we get it wrong when we misdiagnose or misdefine the definition for homelessness. Is kind of like really obscure.
Right. Yeah, no.
And do you want to hear what I really see homelessness as?
Sure. Why not?
I see homelessness as a social economic condition brought on by policies and politics of people with means. And it has its roots in the abject poverty. But we cannot deny the fact that people are disenfranchised.
Yeah.
And so what I really am looking at here now is a humanitarian crisis. And how do we define and how do we get priceless value to being a human being?
Sure. Now, do you see, I don't know, like, do you see that there is much help from the government? Like, is it just to keep them where they are? Like, okay, you're just going to stay out here. There's no help coming. Or do you feel like we've gotten somewhere more progressive in trying to get people into housing and just giving them help? Because it seems like a lot of these people just are stuck, and it doesn't seem like there's very little help that's coming their way.
Well, let's just say how the government views homelessness. So the government, they picked up the narrative as substance abuse and mental illness or mental health. Sure. They say mental health. Nobody wants to say mental illness because it's not politically correct to say that there is a defect somewhere.
Yeah.
So they say mental health. But well, we all have mental health. This is the misdiagnosis. This is the definition that doesn't allow any real help.
Right.
And so the way the government sees homelessness is as vagrants and as people who are, just milling around. They don't realize the economic downturns create homelessness. One of the things about Detroit, it went blight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when Detroit went blight, a lot of blue-collar workers lost their jobs because the industry moved overseas. When
Right.
I think about homelessness, I think about how many things they go by the wayside. There are no longer elevator operators, gas station attendants in some of the major cities. But when you get into the Middle East, they still have gas station attendants. However, but these jobs they start to lose, and they lost their way to automation. And we're steadily going in that direction that people become homeless because they don't have economic opportunity.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. No, I was just talking to a woman. She lives in Oregon, and she said that their population of homeless is like percentage wise actually equals, if not surpasses California, New York, just by percentages, not
Mm.
but and it's just everybody is trying to get on Social Security and all these things, and then they're just getting pushed back, and they're just the housing is continuously going to a sky high, and they cannot get places, and eventually they just become homeless. And I think that's one of the problems, especially with people who look at homeless people. They all, it's kind of the stereotype. It's like, oh, you guys are all bums, and you drink, and you're drug addicts, and those people do exist for sure. And some of them have been caused that after something, whatever else happened. But I think people try to look at homeless people like they're so far from where they are. It's like, well, that couldn't be me. But it's like, you don't understand. If you don't have any friends, you don't have anybody to turn to, and you have no money, and you don't have a job, and you have nothing, no kind of Social Security or anything coming in, you're out on the streets. And
Mhm.
a lot of times it's just a couple bad payments away, and you're with no real experience, and no loved ones, you're out there. And
Well, that's why I said the real definition of homelessness is social economic.
yeah.
And that's the lens we need to look through in order to become, a vital society, a viable society. If we don't start redefining, these things, we cannot fix something. You can't fix something with the wrong definition. You just can't fix it. And what you want to do is you want to go back to the crime and punishment idea. And so most of the places in the country view homelessness as a condition of, let's just say, criminal.
Yeah.
Because you don't have economic opportunities, you're a criminal. You're a vagrant, so we need to lock you up. And I see the government moving towards internment. So
Yeah, no, I think they make it. They try to make. I mean, like you were saying earlier about being like politically correct. I think a lot of things, as a person who advocates, especially for mental health and disability, there's a lot of terms now that they don't want you to use. Like for me, many years ago, I have a suicide attempt. Well, they don't even want you saying suicide anymore. They don't want you.
right.
They want you to say unaliving, which sounds ridiculous. You know, if 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 you're sexually assaulted, you have to use the acronym. You have to say, "I got S-aid." Like that sounds like something you tell your kid, like if he's about to curse. You say, "Oh, let's go say the S word." Like, it's the most
Yeah, well,
ridiculous shit ever.
right. And guess what? It sort of takes away your integrity, and so it demeans it demeans your credibility and what you went through.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they want to sugarcoat it when that I like that example because I have my own example of some of the nonsense. And one of the things is harm reduction. Well, what is that? Harm reduction is supposed to reduce the risk of somebody passing along infections, but they took it another way and says, "Oh, harm reduction is supposed to reduce deaths," but it doesn't do that.
No.
And so, when you talk about harm reduction, you cannot say that drugs kill. You cannot talk about abstinence. And
Sure.
so, I said, well, that's ridiculous. And so somebody told me, says, Chris, I know that drugs is going to kill me, but I just want to get high. I said, well, then, you're saying you know something, but you don't really, denial will leave the dying part out and say you just going to have fun and get high. But that's not the truth of the matter. But
Sure.
see, here's what knowing looks like. Because I tell people be say they know something, right?
Hmm.
How many people do you see get hit on the freeway?
Yeah, it happens.
No, I mean running across the freeway.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, I
You
don't,
you don't.
you don't see it. Yeah,
I It's not heard of
yeah,
because everybody knows that 2,000-pound projectile going at 65 miles an hour is going to obliterate you.
yeah.
And nobody runs across the freeway. Nobody does
Right,
because they know that 2,000-pound car or truck is going to hit them
right.
and it's going to disintegrate them. So people don't do that unless they're going to commit suicide, like you said.
Yeah,
But everybody knows that, so you don't see too many people running across the freeway.
right. Yeah, harm reduction. That just sounds adorable. Like that doesn't even sound that bad. And it's like, oh, isn't that cute?
Yeah, it sounds cute. However, the execution of something puts you in that bewildered state where
Oh,
you're wide-eyed and looking, what? What does that mean?
yeah, yeah.
And the very thing that they say is supposed to do it doesn't do it, you know,
Sure.
because you still have people dying from overdose. You still have people using fentanyl. You know, fentanyl is like playing Russian roulette with an automatic.
Right. Yeah, we had a guy or a few people that were selling here in Pennsylvania. They were selling like laced fentanyl or was it heroin? No, it was yeah, it was fentanyl. And and it was like, "Oh, okay." And they were like, "We have to get this awful person off the streets." And it's like, "Yeah, we do." But you're also like, let's act like we're not gonna. These people aren't. They're going to the candy store, or they're going for milk, and then they're just dying out of nowhere. Someone laced the milk. Like they're going for heroin and fentanyl. Like these, they're not. They're like I said, they're not going to the drugstore to get penicillin. Um, but it's crazy. Like we act like this just doesn't happen, and I think so many people get desensitized to just death. It's like, oh look, we lost another 20 people today in Chicago, and it's like, yeah, that's cool. That's Chicago though. It's like, yeah, but that shouldn't be happening. It happens in Philly. It happens in Camden, New Jersey. It happens in St. Louis. It happens everywhere. And then there's some, like for me, like I said, I lived in Philadelphia for 20 some years, and there's a place there called Kensington Avenue, and there it's pretty much legal to be a prostitute and do drugs. There are people just walking around with heroin needles in their legs, and it's just
Yeah, but
like,
the zombie,
yeah,
they're in a state of zombieism.
right,
So
right, yeah. But as long as they don't wander off to the wrong neighborhoods, it's fine. It's like, they're just there. And I always, how I have people identify with that area is there was a guy going around killing prostitutes for a few weeks. I believe it got up to about 12. And they couldn't catch the guy. They're like, oh, this guy, he's just, oof, he gets out of everything. He's just he's a squealy fella. And then he killed this woman who shouldn't have been there. She wasn't there trying to buy drugs. I think her car broke down in the wrong area. He killed her. They found him in an hour and a half. And it's just because they were allowing it to happen. But when he finally
right.
decided to kill a non-prostitute, a woman who wasn't selling her body, oh, well then now he must go.
Hmm.
Because prostitutes and homeless people to them aren't people. They're, like you
Right.
said, they're
Yeah, they're
zombies.
disposable.
That's the same attitude they have about Skid Row. So Kensington, when I see the pictures of Kensington and I see that drug that they're using down there, that horse tranquilizer, I say, wow. And Kensington is really popular on TikTok. And I said, oh my goodness. I
Yeah.
said, this is just Skid Row, where they don't execute law policies.
No.
If you have criminal behavior in every other area where you would get arrested, in Skid Row, you don't get arrested. In Kensington, you don't get arrested,
No.
you know. But on the books, it says that possession of a controlled substance is illegal. In California, possession of a controlled substance came out to be a felony. And the reason it was made a felony is because of black folks, because that was the ones who were affected more by it. But then that also contributed to the prison industrial complex.
Yeah.
Just like a lot of things that were allowed in the culture became paydays for people who had ran these prisons.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's why they push a lot of these narratives, even in the music industry. It's like, oh, it's easy. Let's just have a lot of these girls' role models shake their ass all the time and everybody talk about drugs. And again, everyone has their own form of entertainment and what their stories are, but there's certain narratives, certain things that get pushed, especially in entertainment, more than it should. And I think everybody should have the right to say whatever they want to say and whatever, but it's what gets pushed out to the kids. And you see a lot of children who aren't homeless and aren't on drugs, but they could be, because they're following these people who they look at as their heroes, like Cardi B or any of these people who are famous, and all they do is degrade them. Like, it's like if you're a young girl, you're looking at someone like Megan Thee Stallion, and it's like all she does is stick her tongue out and shake her ass. She's degrading to you. You should not look up to her, but because she's pushed, it's like, oh, okay, these are your heroes. And I think so many people are lost because they don't know who to look up to. Because, I mean, you can't look up to the politicians. You can't look up. You can't look up. I mean, you see what's going on in the world of celebrity. It just seems like every day more and more is getting exposed by, somebody. And there's a lot of victims around that are real victims. And they're finally coming out and they're exposing this. But still, little by little, more and more is getting pushed. And it's just hatred and negative content. And social media is constantly polluted with it.
That's why the real hero of your journey should be you.
Right.
There should never be an artificial hero assimilated for your life. You are the one that keeps and notes all of the journeys that you've been in. Yeah. From adolescent all the way up to your adulthood. And so, when you find, that's really the hero that's been on the journey.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why the book, The Journey Within. And the first thing we like to address is the wounds. How are the wounds, pushing you to behave in such a manner that does not care for itself?
Sure. Wanda, can you tell me? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Let Wanda do that.
No, I wanted to talk a little more about her journey and all the things that she's done over this period of time and before you guys met and now to what you're doing now.
Oh, wow. I have an extensive, well, because my background is a teacher, but I took a time out and went into modeling and acting and came out to Los Angeles and worked in development at TriStar TV and then also as a literary agent. So I got to work in the entertainment industry for 15 years or so. But then went back and got my master's and started creating programs. And it's more fulfilling. I didn't want to just help people become whatever in Hollywood. I wanted to make more of a difference. And how can I do that is through my writing and creating programs. And that's what our books are about. The Journey Within is it could be a self-study program, which takes you on a journey into yourself and because I found that trauma has a lot to do with how we respond to life, how we react to life, and bringing awareness into what has affected you. And sometimes people are born with challenges, just being born. They've got a disability. That in itself is traumatizing. I was bullied and you wouldn't think it to maybe look at me as but I was terribly bullied, by my sister. It can happen to anybody, but especially if people sense, you've got a stutter, you've got some other disability, you're going to get bullied. And that is very traumatic to the individual. And for me, how I dealt with it, I became a people pleaser. And so you develop a coping mechanism because as a kid, you can't deal with all of that. You can't process emotions effectively. You just don't have the ability. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And so everybody's had something happen in their childhood. And we want people through our books to take a look at that and then process it. We have a saying that you have to feel it to heal it. And there's a way to process. I wish we would teach children how to do this a lot more, or teach young adults how to do this. But most people don't know how to do it. Most people are unaware of all of the myriad of feelings that we have and emotions that we have that can really help guide our lives down a path that's healthy for us.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's a little bit of my background. I never thought I would be the writer. I loved representing writers and directors, but this is where, this is where my life is taking me. And I just believe there's a divine plan for this, and it seems to be working for us.
What made you get into teaching?
Um, Wow, what made me not anything in particular, but I loved teaching. Even when I was an actor, I used to teach acting classes. So it's always been within me. When I was a lit agent, I love to teach writers how, script consulting, how to make their scripts better. So it's just an inherent part of me, teaching and whatever I've done and helping people get to the next level. So it just is a natural thing for me.
Okay. You said you taught children with intellectual disabilities?
Yes. So back then it was called, special ed.
Right.
Back then it was called handicapped kids.
Sure.
That's how old I am. So, mostly mild to moderate. There was one summer that my first summer I did a pretty severe handicap classroom. A lot of the, spina bifida, wheelchair bound, non-communicative. And that was tough because these kids, I could feel their frustration
Sure.
of not being able to do what they wanted to do in life. That one was a tougher assignment, I will say.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, you guys at least have gotten a lot of experience with people who have had it hard. I mean, I know you have your own
Yes.
experience, your own personal experiences, but I mean, when you look at the homeless and people with severe disabilities,
Yes.
very strong people, but also, poorly represented. They're, it's just a lot. There's a lot of things that keep them down, and there's a lot
Oh,
of.
how many years has it taken us to even get sidewalks that are made for the disabled? I mean,
Yeah.
come on. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's something in what I'm doing in my other job is with advocacy, just trying to like we're fighting a case downtown, trying to get our city hall to make their elevators and their building more accessible for people with disabilities, just wheelchair
Yes.
ramps, stuff like that, and
Yes.
they refuse to do it, and now it looks like they're going to have to, but it's just why are we fighting this in
Yeah,
2024?
exactly. Yeah, I don't know if it's politics or money or the big business people resist it because it's going to cost them money. But until we open our hearts and see people as human beings and let humanity lead our lives versus politics or whatever it is, greed, we just got to do better. Everybody has got to do better.
Yeah, I mean, and other than, the people that are born with their situations, we're all, like, for me, I always say, like, my body, I'm legally blind, so I already have a disability. But if you give me my sight back right now, at some point, I'm going to have some sort of other disability. Like, maybe I'll need glasses in the future because I'm going to get older. Maybe I'll need
Yeah,
hearing aids. Maybe I'll need a walker or a cane or something.
that's true.
And so it's like we're only partially able. It's not. It's temporary, and I
Yes.
think people just don't want to look at homelessness or disability as things that can happen at any moment. They look at them like they're so far fetched, and it's just like you have to be this crazy, like you said, a convict or somebody who's just born this way. And the reality is, like, I have a disability right now, and I'm not impervious to having another one. I can get into a car accident later. I hope
Yeah.
not, but and so for me,
But I
yeah,
think
go ahead.
for me, I think it's because people fear it because they
Oh, yeah.
think that could be me.
Yeah.
There is a
Yeah.
part of us that looks at that and says, "Wow, well, what if I lost my job? What if I got into it? What if?" And it could happen. So as long as you keep it out of sight, out of mind, I don't have to think about the consequences of how that could happen to me. And it could happen to anyone.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. And I think they make it so far-fetched. Like they start to push it further and further away from them so that it seems like
Mm-hmm.
it's unattainable. Like that can't happen to me. But you're right. Deep down in the back of their mind, it's like, wow, could I lose my sight like that? Or could I, be,
Yeah.
and it really, yeah, and it scares people, but it should, but it also, you just be aware and have empathy because like I said, you see
Mm-hmm.
somebody, I seen a girl one day, she was flying around a scooter with no legs. And I looked at her and I go like, my
Wow.
God, what a powerful person. Because she knows
Yes.
she's getting looks. She knows people are probably going to say things. Um, and she probably deep down she's insecure and she wants to go home and cry and whatever. But she's like, I got to go to the store, and I'm going to do it one way
Yes.
or another. I don't care. I have to push past all the mental fog and the demons that are screaming at me saying, don't bother. And I gotta get past all these people that are gonna probably discriminate and laugh at me, and I just because I need milk.
For her.
I could easily count on, a friend or a relative or somebody, but you know what? I'm going to do it because I need to have my own independence. And that's just
Mm-hmm.
one example. I mean, that's just a random one off the top of my head from 15 years ago. But it's like when I
Mm-hmm.
see people doing stuff like that, I find them, powerful because they're pushing past everything just to live somewhat, what they call normal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. I think there were, I used to, sometimes I teach leadership classes to kids that come over for summer camps and so forth. And my leadership has to do with heroes like Manny Stepanek, I think that was his name. He
Okay.
had something like cystic fibrosis, so he didn't have long to live, and he could barely speak. His lungs were giving out. But he wrote so many books and inspiring messages, and loved Jimmy Carter, and it was his mentor, and he got to meet all these famous people, and he was on Oprah. Look what he did in his like 12 years of life, and he had such a spirit about him, such heart centered,
Yeah.
and those are the heroes we should be looking up to. People that are making a positive difference in the world.
Yeah, yeah. I like when some of the heroes that have come to like even like Martin Luther King, right? Like they tend to try to go back now and go, "Oh, but he was like a womanizer." It's like even if that's true, I don't care. Like for
Yeah.
all the good he did doesn't get, just washed away because he decided to just be a man and sleep with other women. Do I feel like you should just cheat on, anybody? No, but it's like I'm not going to take away from the man's legacy because he's probably the most quotable person in history, and he fought for what we all should fight for is, inclusiveness and unity, and he wasn't just fighting for people who look like him, he was fighting for everybody. And it's
Well,
like,
let's say he who has no sin should cast the first stone.
oh, I know. Yeah, it's a lot of people behind the scenes that are just go, oh, yeah, he wasn't perfect. It's like, yeah, but
None of us are perfect. We've
no.
all made mistakes in our lives.
Yeah,
All of us. I have things I'm embarrassed about. We've made less than eloquent choices at
sure.
points in our lives.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, to your point, like there's a lot of people out here that we should really be looking up to. And again, you're right. You're also, Chris, because we also should be looking at ourselves. But there are people we should look to and go, man, like that is somebody. I don't necessarily want to be that person, but I want to have
Mhm.
certain qualities like that person. I would like to be that empathetic or loyal or honest, and because I think you do need some sort of blueprint. You need something to go by to know what to look up to and go, okay, I want to be somewhat in that lane. I want to be like that.
We can't save the world. And
No.
this is important because I think people get paralyzed by this. And we talk about this in our second book, Isabel, Starry Night, The Magical Quest for Alchemy, is when Isabel visits Skid Row and she's like overwhelmed. What do I do? What do I do? And they point out to her that, look, you can only do what's right in front of you, and that you're capable, do something that you're capable of. Because if you decide to go into, oh my God, I can't do anything, or I got to save this whole, the whole population down there, you'll become frozen, you'll become paralyzed and say, I just can't do anything. But if everybody did just a little thing every day, everybody did a little thing every day, it would just change the world.
Yeah. Now this is a question for both of you. Like as a person who, I mean, both have done stuff with the homeless, but also, Wanda, you with people with intellectual disabilities. Like, how is it that you don't allow what you do in the public and helping people? How don't you take it home? Because obviously you see all these people who don't have homes, or you see all these people in wheelchairs and all that, and they have it so hard. How do you just come home and not feel like absolute crap?
Because I don't see their disability. I see all their gifts, talents, and abilities.
Right.
And I use those to propel them forward. These amazing kids. I mean, even some of the autistic kids, they have an amazing memory and they think so differently. So I don't view it as a disability. I view it as a difference. And sometimes, I mean, even ADHD kids, the level, yes, they get distracted, but when they like something, the level of focus that they can put into something is 10 times more than I can.
Sure.
So there's always that element. It's like your sight. Have you noticed that you have enhanced hearing, touch, something else?
Yeah.
There's always the flip side of that. So I look at the positive of it. It never gets me down.
Sure. How about
Christopher? Christopher works in a more challenging place.
Right. I mean, the question was more for him, but I wanted your take, and I loved your answer. So.
Yes.
When I first started down there, believe me, I was able to be empathetic as an empath. And for the first 2 years, I cried every day.
Sure.
For 2 years, because I saw the people languishing, dying in the sun, and people being dead. I had to even train myself to look and see if a person's chest would rise above, because I wasn't going to step over somebody and they had expired. And believe me, you do see people dead on the sidewalk. And I cried for 2 years, and because I had a negative perception that this was the elephant graveyard. However, as the years went on, I began to see the rise of the phoenix. I began to see people get up and say, Chris, I got a new job. Chris, I got my own apartment. Chris, I'm working now. Chris, I'm going back to school. I saw this, and when I saw this, it reminded me of the rise of the phoenix, where the phoenix does not come up the same bird. He goes down in the ashes of his existence and he comes up a new bird. And I see sometimes the resilience of humanity in Skid Row. And I'm not the judge of it. So the less you judge, the more freedom you have. And when I come home, I know I've done everything I can to help another man. It's always rich and rewarding. And so, I mean, I'm able to live, I'm able to cry, I'm able to laugh, but carrying it home is not my plight. I don't carry anything, because one of the things that when I started, Spirit told me, leave a man with his dignity. And I'm beginning to learn that whatever journey an individual has, that's his journey. And I have to respect that that's his journey, and not try to make it into some pigeonhole of an idea that society has created for norm.
Yeah.
So.
No, for sure. Was it hard on the flip side? Was it hard not to be just desensitized to, oh, look, there's just a dead person on the sidewalk?
What do you mean hard not to be desensitized?
Like, was it hard?
Another way.
Like, was it hard not to just like that become like your normal? Like, it was like, oh yeah, look, there's just a person on the sidewalk dead, and there's another one, and without having any real emotion or empathy. Like, did you ever go through a moment or a process where you're like, oh, that's just nothing. That's just, it's just Fred. He's just dead, or they don't have a name. He's just some guy I saw.
No, Christopher would never get to that point. If that happens now, he will stand by that person and say a prayer.
Sure.
And wait for.
Yes, it helps. No, that's unheard of.
I mean, that's.
No, what he's saying to me, what he's saying to me is unheard of. Yeah. For me.
For you. Okay.
No, that's not my experience.
Okay.
Because I view life as precious.
Sure.
And all life,
all sentient beings is precious. I believe that the work of the Creator is phenomenal. So there's this infinite idea that all life is beautiful and precious. Everybody's life means something to me. And when I said leave a man with his dignity, maybe that's the essence of truth. Maybe that's what the Creator did. Every man's on his own personal journey, and I salute that journey. Do I agree with everything that somebody do? Especially, I have my own personal biases. I don't like people hurting other people.
Sure.
And I don't like people that do ignorant things and do it unjustly.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. No, yeah, I was just curious because there are people who, I mean, you hear like with cops, they see so much violence that sometimes it just becomes, oh, okay, this is just,
I don't think they're desensitized. I just think that realistically, you can't put the milk back into the jug after it's on the ground.
Right, fair enough. Yeah.
So somewhere you have to move on. And so I sometimes I just ask the cops that they get home safe. And believe me, that's all I used to do when I was younger was fight cops.
Right.
And I realized and I found out why that was. In the 5th year in my AA, I was able to see this picture play out in my mind. That is the reason why I didn't have, such a good relationship with policemen. Sure. But as you mentioned, when you take a look at it, you say, I don't think they're desensitized. I just think that what can I do about it? There's nothing I can do about it. I've let the person know that this person has expired, or, I try to keep myself out of trouble from being shot, stabbed, and mutilated, and then be attacked by the crowd. So, they have such a hard job sometimes. I have to have compassion for them too.
Yeah, no, I mean that's great that you think that way. Because again, there are good in every profession and there are bad in every profession, and there are a lot of cops that every day they have to really consider the option of, am I going to make it home to my children and wife tonight?
Right. I don't think sometimes, like I said, for me personally, right. I am empathetic, and I want to help, but then. On the flip side of that, the truth and the reality is I can only do so much because that person has to make decisions for his own life. He can't make decisions according to Christopher. So It's not that I don't care. It's just that sometimes, I'm not going to try to throw a tree across the street. That's just something I'm not going to do. I'm not going to run across the freeway, during rush hour traffic.
Right.
So, there are some places that are realistic, and so I try to be as real as I can with the information that I have and the processing.
Sure.
But the freedom that I get from being authentic allows that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something I've come to learn in the last maybe last 3 to 5 years is. When I was young, I tried so hard to just fit in because I was being bullied, and eventually it was just like, okay, I'll whatever the cool kids are doing or whatever I can to just stay out of from being a target. I will say, sure, I like that movie, even though I hate it, or vice versa. And then eventually, you realize that's silly because when you're young, you don't want to be different. Being different is really crappy because you're like, oh, that means people are going to stare at me, and that means no one will eat with me, no one will talk to me. And then as you get older, especially now in the age of social media where everyone it seems to be very much the same, and everyone's using filters and they're doing everything to not be themselves. And I'm like, well, that's ridiculous. I'd rather just be me. I've gotten this far. I've survived so many things. Why would I want to be someone else? So I just so being real and authentic, it's like you're just going to have to live and die on the sword. It may cost you some things. People may turn on you, or, but, you may find more love.
At the end of the day, it's only between you and God anyway, isn't it? Sure.
Yeah. And again, like I said, I'm a lot happier than I've ever been. And I still struggle with mental health and other things, but I'm way much in a better headspace when certain things arise and I go, oh, okay, this is an ideal, ordeal. And I wouldn't like to be dealing with this right now, but I can handle it much easier because I'm more comfortable with who I am. And I'm grateful for the journey, and I'm not ashamed of the disability or anything. So it makes it easier to walk around in my skin now and not, curl up in a ball anytime there's a bunch of people around.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes,
Yeah, good for you.
yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. So obviously you guys, became, an item and loved each other and all that once you got past all the trials and tribulations in the beginning. But what made you actually want to be a partner in helping people?
Well,
we are people. I mean, helping somebody sometimes is helping yourself. Sometimes the thing that you do for somebody else awakens something, or it lets you become aware of something else. So why not?
Sure.
Part of the Alcoholics Anonymous program says the root of our problem is that we're selfish, self-seeking, and self-centered. And so, being selfish is not a community. There's no unity in selfishness.
Sure.
And is where you do some of your worst work. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
And I was able to put in my experience working in Hollywood in The Journey Within, for example. Each chapter has kind of a funny title, and I relate it to for a shootout at OK Corral, for example, and related into for you to. There's always evidence and indicators if you're leading an authentic life and you have dealt with your issues. But if you get in a shootout with somebody, and that shootout just means that you're arguing, you got to be right. You're arguing with somebody.
Sure.
That's a shootout. We call that being in a shootout with somebody. Or somebody, like if we were giving our presentation, we were giving seminars, sometimes somebody would stand up just to challenge us. And you don't want to get caught up in the BS of that, because
Right.
It's just a clever mind trying to trip you up, And if we did, we'd make jokes about, oh, you got caught in a shootout today.
Yeah, but you could be in a shootout from a bad actor in a B movie on a bad day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
So, say that again.
No, I'm agreeing with you. Fair enough. Yes. Yeah.
So
Go
you try to avoid shootouts because, at the end of the day, if somebody sees it a certain way, let them be right in what they see, I mean, it gives you a lot more time. It gives you a lot more freedom. It gives you a lot more peace, which are also authenticators and indicators. And so what's the evidence that this is a viable program? The peace that you find in your journey, no matter what's going on. The things that used to baffle you and used to send you in a tizzy are now, it's mundane and it doesn't have that effect on you. That's when you know that you have freedom.
Sure.
And your happiness is also an indicator and evidence that, you're in here. So, I found out what balance is.
Okay. I'm
balance
curious.
is living in the center of peace. And the most prayed prayer in Alcoholics Anonymous is, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So in all actuality, we sit in this place of peace, in this room of contentment, so joy is apparent and evident.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's definitely much easier when you feel more balanced.
So there was a synergy when you asked what made us work together. Well, because Christopher is brilliant in a room, and I'm a writer, and I can focus and take great notes. He's got ADHD. He can't do that.
Sure.
So we use my gifts and abilities and his, and then through that created this program with these two books.
Sure. No, that's the answer I think that really defines it and sums it up entirely, because again, I was asking that because there's a lot of people that are in love with each other and they love everything about each other, but they also like their own space, and they don't want to go to in business together. They want to, hey, I'm a NASCAR driver and she's a writer. We aren't, both NASCAR drivers, or we aren't both writers. But you guys both have something you bring to the table, and where one lacks, the other, helps to, increase and bring them up, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And so, that's awesome.
Yeah. So we just found it worked well together.
Sure.
No, I think what works well together is respect.
That too.
And being able to hear her when she speaks to me, and being able to take responsibility for my stuff.
Right.
Because if she says something to me, it's not necessarily something, that is hers. It might be my stuff I need to take a look at. But I think it's the respect. She told me once one thing. She said, "Christopher," I said, "What?" She said, "Do you know what a woman wants?" I said, "No. What does a woman want?" Most men will tell you, "Oh, I know what a woman wants."
Right.
I said, "No, I don't know what a woman wants." She said, "A woman wants to be cherished." And every day in my life, when I think about what does it mean to cherish her, I'm not doing enough to cherish her. And then that way I'm always aware that, to cherish her sometimes is just doing a simple thing.
Yeah, sometimes it all comes down just to the littlest of things that maybe if you're in the wrong headspace you wouldn't have never thought of. You'd have just glanced over it and gone, that's not that big of a deal. But I think when some people complain about like, oh well, why would I give a girl flowers? I don't like flowers. But it ain't about you. It's about what she likes. If she likes them and it makes her happy, then get them for her. If she doesn't like them, then don't buy them for her, because you're just going to annoy her. Why start a fight when you don't need to?
Well, that can be dealt with respect.
Right, exactly.
How can you be with somebody and you disrespect them continuously? And so that sometimes is the needle that continues to prick in domestic relationships, is the disrespect for one another.
Yeah. Because I think some people think, well, ultimate disrespect is just, I'm going to say the worst names to you, call you the worst names, or I'm going to hit you or whatever. But no, sometimes you can just constantly disrespect them in little ways, and eventually just adds up to one giant ball of disrespect, and they're done tolerating it. And but I think, the fact that you guys have found like true love, and because people, it's, a lot of people don't find that. And you guys know how to respect each other's boundaries, and I'm sure you guys have your own moments where you just need some time to yourself, but also when you do need each other, you're right there and you support each other, and that's awesome.
Yeah, we can get uncomfortable. So.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Those are the times that make you uncomfortable, and those are the times when you learn how to shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, because sometimes what's not said may be the healthiest thing you can do at that moment.
Sure. Well, I mean, you're two people that know everything about each other, have seen each other at the worst and best times. So it's like anything can be said or done at any moment. You can't hide from this person anymore. So
we made a rule that we would never treat each other disrespectfully or say unkind words, and we have not.
Yeah.
And I like 14 and a half years.
But I like that. I like the fact that we don't do that. It's so mundane and unnecessary.
Sure.
Right.
I can feel uncomfortable by myself. You don't have to make
I hear that.
So what were we doing? Oh, we were so Urban Voices had a performance.
Oh, well, let me back up, because Christopher started a choir downtown on Skid Row called the Urban Voices Project.
Okay.
And it's a choir for the disenfranchised
and everybody.
And everybody's welcome.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's been going for 10 years now. It's a nonprofit. It's a pretty big deal. So when he talks about Urban Voices, that's who they are.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So she gave. Isn't that a partner for you? She gave you the backstory. I didn't even think about giving you the backstory. I wanted to give you the idea of what it's like to be uncomfortable with someone.
You yin and you yang. I like it.
We're in the cosmic dance.
All right.
So we was looking for the place, and you know when the GPS fails you, it can get uncomfortable in the car. You know, especially when males don't want to take directions from other people in the car,
Right.
and so we couldn't find it, and so I know we were headed for a disquieted situation, and I just closed my mouth and I said, I'm really uncomfortable about this. I said,
because he was performing and we had to be there.
and so I think she was driving, and we was trying to find a place, and it was
going in circles.
We were going in circles, and it was becoming uncomfortable. And so I know when I'm uncomfortable, and then when we talk about the discomfort, we're able to just love each other more, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, get the back.
I didn't take my discomfort. But what I do like is not taking anything that I'm feeling out on her, because it's not hers. It's mine. I'm the one that's feeling this way.
Right.
And then when I present it to her, we can sit down, look at it, we can laugh about it, and we can be free of it.
Well, and that's what our work is all about. Going back to the individual, taking responsibility for your stuff. Sometimes in life, there's stuff out there that's not our stuff. We don't have to take responsibility for other people's crap. But we do have to take responsibility for our part in something. Yeah. And it's always our responsibility to change and create healthier outcomes for ourselves. That's only our responsibility. No one else is responsible for your life. No matter what happened in the past, you are still responsible for your life.
And how do we clean that up without being brutal to ourselves? Because a lot of times people don't want to look at the past because they criticize and condemn themselves. I was working on somebody yesterday that wouldn't like to explore the possibility of forgiveness, forgiving themselves for something. No, I don't deserve it. Okay, so that's a perspective that you're taking to hold yourself in bondage, to hold yourself as a hostage to something that has passed on down the river. What about that person that's sitting here today?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can't harbor it for too long. I've said many times, I see so many people, and I did it personally, where it's like this closet full of all your skeletons, and you just keep shoving more in there until one day it all just spills out all over you, and now you got to deal with 30 problems at once when you could have just dealt with it one at a time. And
it's true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. And that's how you become the hero in your own journey. Dealing with those old skeletons that's just occupying space in a closet that pops out when they want to.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and just healing. I see so many people that hold on to resentment, and they won't, and again, there are some things that are you can't heal. There's some things that are like you can't fix. There's some relationships that are just unfixable. But if there's just some things, some words that were said or some neglect, whatever, I don't know, just, for me and my dad, we built our relationship up, and we didn't have the greatest relationship for most of my life. And I just said, I don't want to see my dad die and not have anything to do with me. And it wasn't me. I should have been the one that did it, but nonetheless, I'm happy I did, because we're in a much better place now. If I didn't make that move, we might never ever talk again. And I don't know how much.
And when we're brave enough to tackle those challenges head on and work through them, we're creating so much light in the world.
Yeah.
And we're creating space in our own life. And so it's in that space that I find just a little bit more peace. Yeah. Now, what happens when I find myself in the center of my own life with this peace? Nothing left to do but just to receive the light, to receive the joy, to be content. Yeah. That's one thing you don't have to tackle. And that's one thing that you cannot regret or resent.
Sure. Absolutely. Where can anyone find your books? Do you have a website?
We do have a website, dynamicsofrecovery.com. Everything is on the website.
Okay.
Dynamics with an S of recovery.com. The books are on there. We have some YouTube videos if people wanted to get into the concepts a little bit deeper. Our book, The Journey Within, and Isabel Starry Night is also available on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. Yeah.
That's awesome. I feel like we covered everything, right? I don't want to make sure I skipped.
I think we did. I think we covered a good amount.
Tell them if you find it necessary to have a check-in, we might be available.
Okay.
But we like you, TJ. Thank you.
I appreciate you, buddy. Anytime. No, yeah, man. I mean, it's hard when you have two people who have two different stories, but then eventually came together and made more memories. I mean, there's only so much you can say within an hour, but it's regardless. I mean, you can jam pack it if you really try hard enough and you care and you have the empathy and you just let loose, have a nice conversation, and hope you help a couple people, and that's what you can.
I hope we inspired at least one person. How's that?
That's good enough for me. That's good enough for me.
Hey, look, maybe we inspired the dog.
Hey,
so, I don't know, but look, it's out there, and the work you're doing is monumental, because to be able to sit down and do introspection and reflection is one of the lost arts in the Western culture.
Yeah, I think.
And so I just chalk it up to you giving us a moment so that we can reflect, so that we can do introspection.
Yeah.
Because this will help me and Wanda to become better partners.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think that's what's great when you're able to just drop your guard and learn and open your ears and eyes and just, don't always think you have all the answers, and you're able to just talk to somebody and go, oh, that was good. I didn't come up with that, and I'm going to implement that into my, repertoire of tools that I already have, and not just think and, and go, I'm going to give Christopher and Wanda the credit because they're the ones who taught me something, or vice versa. And it's just like, it's great to just surround yourself with good people who are, empathetic and want to help people. And because we don't, like I said, we don't get highlighted enough, and we also, you don't see as many people as we should, because we see so much darkness and negativity in the world. And it's good that, that people like you guys exist, and you're trying to make like you said, that one kid, 12 years old, and in that 12 years, look what kind of legacy he left behind, where there are people who just say, oh, what did you do with your legacy? I dribbled a basketball for 20 years. Well, you didn't really do anything. Were you charitable? Nah, I spent it on, Bentleys. Oh, okay. Well, I guess you didn't really leave nothing behind, I mean, maybe for their kids they did. But in general, like, you can do so much. And I think if we all stop looking at it like, well, I got another 50 years, you don't know that.
We don't know. Yes.
You have no idea. There's a lot of people that we lost way too early. But
yes.
So it's like, for me now that I'm in the headspace that I want to be in, and I'm much happier, it's like I'm just trying to do good and just put as much good energy into this world, because tomorrow I might not have it. I might not be here. I'm hoping I will be, but I'm just going to try to do some good, and hopefully I can just, pull back the curtain and say, look, this is what it is like to have a disability. This is what it's like to have mental health, and this is what it's like to have gone through all the things I've gone through. And here's a bunch of people who have gone through a bunch of things themselves, and we're just going to be honest and give you the hardcore truth, and you accept it however you want to accept it, but we're here for you, and this is the good we're trying to do for the world.
Okay, well, beautiful. Thank you. Let us know when it's ready to.
I will.
Go out into the world.
Yes, I thank you guys for coming on. It'll be a little while, but you'll be the first ones to know, and keep doing what you're doing, and I thank you very much for coming on.
Oh, we will.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, both of you.
Okay, take care. Have a beautiful day.
You too. See you guys. All right, guys. I'm sorry, my brain was really foggy on this episode as I trip over foggy. But yeah, really delightful people. Hope you guys learned something, got something out of this episode. I got to go do some things before I kind of pack it up for the night. But yeah, I hope you're all hanging in there, man. If you're struggling, I see a lot on social media. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, or should follow me on TikTok, that's where I really do a lot of introspective content, which is at my blurred opinion, easy to remember. But yeah, man, I see a lot of people that are hurting and just trying to get through the day and don't know how they're going to. And so I reach out to them. Some you hear on the show, some that are just, they have no interest in being on the show. They just need a friend. Some don't ever get back to me. But nonetheless, you make the effort, try to, help people, because we all need some assistance. We all need someone to just kind of put our weight on. So, and if you're a person that's in a good space, please find those people who aren't and help them out. Just listen or give them good advice. Whoa, I didn't mean to do that yet, but yeah, I guess that's our cue. Bullet is, I was going to say he's no longer with us, but he is alive. He's just not in the room. I don't know where he went. I don't think he enjoyed this episode, so he was embarrassed by my performance, so he left. For those who are, if this is your first episode, Bullet is my cat. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here since I hit the button accidentally. Hope you all have a good one. I hope to see you, or I hope you hear me next week. All right, guys. See ya.